Well, welcome folks to episode number 4 of the Hero's Journey podcast. Today, I have a really exciting guest with me that I'm excited to share his story and to have you all learn more about him. His name's Sabin Shrestha, and he's a good friend that I've met living out in Colorado. We've connected over men's groups and camping and endurance events and things like that. So I think Sabin has a really, really cool story and has a lot to share. And so, yeah, Sabin, I guess I'll just open it up like super briefly. If you just want to give like a brief intro as to, who you are and what you do. And we can get into kind of like your past because you're from Nepal, which people will learn here in a bit. But yeah.
Thanks for having me. So I'm Sabin. I've been in the US for about 18 years. I am a product manager by profession.
Nice.
So I do digital products. I help companies build software from product strategy up until delivery. That's kind of my profession. Other than that, like you said, I'm from Nepal, and I'm enjoying living out here in the US. All my adult life, and this is my second home, and away from Nepal. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Cool.
Yep.
So for the folks back home, Sabin just finished the Leadville Marathon.
Yep.
And so, I just briefly want to hear about like how that was. It's the hardest marathon in the US,
Yes.
right? It's in Leadville. It's at 10,000 feet. And I think you get up to like 13,000 feet.
Yeah,
right?
you get up to 13,000 up to Mosquito Pass. That race was pretty fun, pretty tough, I would say. I think that's probably one of the mentally hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Trail running is very new to me.
Yeah.
I've done like Ironmans and road running a lot, but trail running is something new I wanted to explore. And I didn't train a lot for the trails. I was training more strength training at a gym here called V23. But I just wanted to kind of test myself and put myself out there. And it was a fun event. A lot of people, very inspiring to see a lot of people run that race. For me personally, it was just mentally challenging to keep focused, like on the downhills and the uphills, technical terrain, so mentally it was very challenging for me, but something new, and I learned a lot there. So super fun, I'll probably do it next year as well.
Nice. Yeah.
Yep.
That's great. What was so difficult about it? I know you mentioned like the mental, it's because your body is pretty strong. I'm assuming doing strength training and you have resilience, but you're on your feet for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. What was your time?
It was 6:21.
Okay.
I was trending towards sub 6, but I faded a little bit at the end. But yeah, like physically my body held up pretty good. I didn't feel any cramps or
Nice.
any tiredness. It was basically the newness of trails, the terrain was tough. When I'm downhill running, like just having to like constantly focus on the downhills, which in the road, like you don't have to really focus on the road, you're just zoning out. So I'm used to like long distance, like just being in my own head and just focused. With trail running, like it felt completely different. Like I couldn't even think about anything other than like what my next step is going to be. So I think that was probably the challenging bit, was like my mind was getting tired at like mile 18, 19. It's like, okay, like I need to settle down, or like I was finding it hard to keep myself positive. And everything that I used to kind of tell myself during these races didn't work, because it was hard. But at those moments, I think like I leaned on to people running beside me, people just having that same journey with me, and talking with them, and just running beside them. I think that kind of kept me going, and I had I was able to finish strong.
Nice. And you mentioned, I want to get into how it compares, right, to Ironmans in a second, but you mentioned that, so getting into, because I want to hear about Ironman and kind of like the comparison between ultras, and I saw, how many Ironmans have you done?
I've done one full, 7 halves.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. So yeah, we'll get to that in a second, but I think the first thing I want to hear about, like the support system that you had and the friends that you ran with, and the people that were there crewing you.
Yep.
Just like for people that maybe have never run an ultra before or have done any sort of race before, like explain what it's like seeing them or like being with them and those kind of like feelings and emotions that brings up.
Yeah, I think for me that was the best part. Like
Yeah.
when I started like doing these things like races and Ironmans, like it was for me. That's
Yeah.
how I started. But now as I progressed through doing a bunch of these things, like more and more I have realized that it's for the people that is supporting me. Like so sometimes like when I do like Leadville, like it's not about me anymore. Like I don't want to disappoint my wife or my friends, who are crewing and doing those things with me. I want to share the finish line with them.
Yeah.
So throughout the whole race, like I'm just thinking about, what a cool experience. Like there's 8 people out here just coming out here just to support me, and I have my why I'm doing this, but they are there just, there's no reason
Yeah.
for them to be
It's
there.
for you.
It's for me,
Yeah.
So that's just a great feeling to have. And for me, like being able to like bring people together and just have like a 2 or 3 days of cool weekend, just
Yeah.
out there, it's just grateful, and um I think like more and more I'm thinking in future, like, and I want to keep doing this for the people that's in my life versus just for me,
Yeah.
and create that experience, inspire people. Already, there are a couple of friends who are like, I want to do this next year, or I'll do a half next year. So, it's just cool to see that energy flow through to other people, and it will change their life, their trajectory on whatever they're trying to do, so,
Totally.
and being part of that, I think it's just awesome.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's dig into that a bit, because I think we were camping a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that are you the founder or like the person that started Himalayan Tribe, which
Yeah.
is a social well-being club where you put on events for people from the Himalayas that
Yep.
live in Denver. Yeah, just explain to me like what that's all about.
Yeah.
And who it's for and why you had the inclination to want to start it.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of backstory there, right? Like I lived in Minnesota for 14 years before I moved out to Denver. Again, being from Nepal, like the mountains is what drives me, and I always wanted to move to a place like Colorado. But when I moved here, my expectation of Colorado kind of was, went away, because it was so hard to meet people, and when I say meet people, it's not just people from here, like, born and raised in US.
Yeah.
It's people from Nepal, like
Right.
being from Nepal, I think, we always have this feeling of like, we want to be close to people from Nepal, and that's where like we kind of find ourselves, like our support. For me, like personally, like it's not easy. It's not hard for me to meet new people.
Yeah.
But I was finding it really challenging to meet like-minded Nepali people. So I got inspired by a lot of run clubs here, like things of that nature, and I'm like, why don't I just create my own club, and inspire people from Nepal, or it doesn't even have to be from Nepal, like anybody, who wants to come and do a hike with me or do a run with me. And I started that just out of plain, like I want to meet people from Nepal, that was the basic idea behind that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as I dug into this a little bit more, we have a different story. We come from a different country, we grew up different, our culture is different, and our struggle to make a living, through the process of visas and everything is different.
Yeah.
So I had that journey in my 20s, where I just kind of breezed through my 20s, just trying to get somewhere with my profession, with my visas and stuff like that. Like I didn't focus on my health, I didn't focus on anything other than what I needed to do at that moment.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot in the Nepali community, and what happens is, like, by the time you have everything, then you don't, then after that you don't know what you need to do. So
Yeah.
slowly, like, it was just about not just a club, but I wanted to kind of provide this space for people to meet new people, and but also like share the struggles that you have, and share the journey that you're going through, and maybe we can help each other, and it's not just about fitness or hiking, it's more about connecting, and more about like encouraging each other and supporting each other in whatever life situation you're in.
Right.
So that's kind of the idea, like kind of how can you create a support system around you, which a lot of people don't have, especially when you come from a different country.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think it's super cool what you're
Yeah.
doing. So you mentioned the piece around how you were in Minnesota and you went to school in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And then you started working. And you mentioned that it was kind of like a rush to citizenship, to visa, to like employment, all these kind of boxes that you need to check to make sure that
Yep.
like you're able to become a citizen and you're able to stay in the US.
Yep.
Did you find your health or other things like slipping while those other priorities, were top of mind, and now you've kind of had the time and the ability to be able to do things like Ironmans that are huge time commitments
Yep.
and financial commitments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You exactly right. Like when you come here, you finish your school. So yeah, like when you come here, I was 18, and you go to school. I didn't have any thought of like staying in US, but the conditions in Nepal, the political situations, it was really rough, and it's still rough, So, uh, people like me who come here, we always want to kind of gain some experience, work, do something, make a life, and um, so there was always this goal of like, how can I get a job? How can I impress at my workplace? How can I kind of progress? So that was kind of like the mountain top, right? And when you do that, like you're so focused, and it's basically like training for an Ironman. Like you have these goals, and you keep hitting them. And what ended up happening was like I hit all my goals when I was 26. I bought a townhome, I met my wife, I had a pretty good job, I had a pretty good car, and then it was this, in my head, it was the start of like everything perfect. But I think it was the start of everything downhill. Like I had no vision anymore. I didn't know what I was doing. I was not very focused at my work. I was drinking, like, so it's just kind of downhill from there. And I found myself in situations where I didn't want it to be. I found myself in situations where I was up late night, so it was a rough 2 years, I would say, where I was just basically lost and couldn't find myself. That's when my health kind of took a sidetrack. I was probably the heaviest I was, and I was not that heavy, but it was like 165 pounds. For me, it was like a little heavy. But I was not training for anything. I couldn't run half a mile. So it was pretty rough. And mentally, like for me, not just physically, mentally, like I was checked out. Like I didn't want to do anything. I had no goals, because I tick off all those things that I wanted to do. So that's when like I had to make a change, and that's when like I decided to get into fitness, get into good habits, not just fitness, but just get into good habits, create some goals for myself for my career, change my career. I was not always in product. I was doing something else, in software, but really try to find who I am, and then focus on my strengths and also work on my weaknesses, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, it's a cool story, and I think a lot of people struggle with this, where they're really working up to something. They have this huge goal. Right. For you, it was like buying the house, marrying the girl, like getting the car, all these things. But then they do that and they get it. And then it's like, what's next? What's the next thing? Was there, after you went through that kind of identity crisis maybe, or lack of purpose, was there a specific moment or a specific catalyst for the change, or was it just this long kind of drawn out process where like, all right, I'm not aligned with who I want to be? Was there a specific moment, or was it more of like a long-term process?
I think the first step was realizing, for me, it was like, okay, like everything that I'm doing is wrong, because I was very hard on myself. Like I'm a people's person. I was trying to bring people together even when I was 26, 27, and things were, whatever I was doing, it was not going the right way. people were not viewing me, kind of in the right way. I felt that I was trying to impress the people more versus like impressing myself or like working towards something. So the first step for me was just realizing, like it was a realization at that point was like, like I'm trying too hard, maybe, like I'm forcing the issue, so that was my first thing. I had to kind of take a break from whatever I was doing and just focus on what's important for me. And it started with my career, like I was not happy with my job. And I was like, I did this exercise, I clearly remember where I just drew a line on a paper and said strengths and weaknesses and started writing what my strengths are, started writing what I wanted to do every day at my work, what kind of person I want to be at work, so I kind of started with my career. And from there, like, I started feeling a little positive about my life, and that was probably the starting point. But I would say the biggest change came when there was a program at my work. It says bike to work program. And I didn't own a bike, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to bike to work, so I bought a $500 bike, started biking to work. It was 17 miles one way. So it was like 34 miles a day.
That's
I started biking, and that kind of changed a little bit, on my fitness side. And I started meeting people who biked, like fondos and 50 miles and those things. I started doing those slowly, so after that it started like snowballing, but I would say like those two things, one was the bike to work, and one was kind of like just resetting myself and kind of, thinking where to head from a career perspective, because I was not happy, with the job that I had.
Yeah. And so the bike to work thing, I love that. That's such a great thing. That was the catalyst for a lot of the physical things, right? So then you start biking and you start getting in maybe a little better shape. And then you start meeting people that are biking, and then they start pulling you into things that are going on. Oh, this weekend, come bike with us. And then, you've done 7 half Ironmans and 1 full, and multiple, other bike races and trail runs. So, what have you learned about yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, through the process, over those? How long has it been? I don't know, like 8 years,
9 years. Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is just a reaffirmation that I like to try things. I am not afraid of putting myself out there. Like coming from Nepal at the age of 17 and a half, I was that guy, So how did I become this guy who had no confidence at 26? It just gave me that reaffirmation that, I'm still that person. I can still go and challenge myself and do something new,
right.
Whether it is career, Ironmans, whatever it is, that's probably the biggest thing. Like, I gained that confidence back. And that's the biggest thing that I learned is, don't lose track of who you are. Like, find that center, which I lost for a while, but then I regained it back, so that's probably the biggest thing. Other than that, I think the other thing that I learned is, it's, mentally, physically, we have a lot to give as human beings, and again, like when I meet my friends, I don't tell them that you have to do an Ironman or you have to run ultras or anything, but it's more about trying new things and kind of let your mind and body drive what you want to do. Right now, I don't force the issue, like I want to do this or that next. I just kind of let it flow. Like if I feel like I want to do a trail run, I'll sign up for a trail run. If I want to do a mountain bike, I'll do mountain biking. So there's no forcing, like I want to hit this time goal and this and that. Like I'm not forcing those things anymore. It's more like, what experiences that I want to get, and I'll just do those things. So more and more I do these things, I think I'm maturing a little bit more on what I want to get out of doing these crazy events.
I think that's really, really mature and really well said about seeing where life takes you and what things just spark that interest in you very naturally and organically, as opposed to holding on too tight to something. The first marathon I ever ran, I really wanted to run sub 350.
Yep.
And I was so focused on that when I, slowed down those last 4 miles and I started cramping up and I started, walking and not being able to run, and I finished at 354.
Yep.
I was pissed.
Yep.
And that's not how
Yep.
your first marathon ought to go. Like, it should be a really awesome experience, but I was so like tied to the outcome.
Yep.
And I think that that's pretty dangerous. And I think a sign of maturity is this ability to let go.
Yeah.
And this ability to kind of just go with the flow of things.
Yeah. And also like, outcomes are important in different ways, like you definitely want to make sure that you're getting better. So you want to look at outcomes as if like, how did you do? The way I look at outcomes now is it's not just the time goal, it's like how I felt during that race.
Yeah.
Because the outcome can be quantitative, like the data itself, like 350 goal, or it can be qualitative, like, having 8 friends out there, what does success mean to you? Like, I think it's different, so
yeah.
So you as a person, if you are in tune with like what success means to you, nothing can really bother you, at that point, so then whether you are the slowest guy, but you're having the best time,
yeah,
who cares? So I think it's more about that for me now.
Totally.
And like I said, I do look at my times and I do want to get better at those things, but that doesn't define me anymore, or define my experience anymore, because I have other metrics or things that I'm kind of looking at.
You realize that there's more to life than the thing, the whatever time for whatever race.
Yep.
There's family, there's friends, there's connection, there's work, and finding passion there.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah, I had the same feeling when I did my first half, because when I did my first half, I had this same like sub 6 hours goal, and I achieved it, but the thing was like, it didn't give me joy during that process, like even though I was not focused on the destination, I was focused on the process.
Yeah.
More and more it started feeling like I'm doing work, like, I have to go run because it's in my plan, and I have to do it just because, whatever, right? Like, so it's good for some degree, like I think it's good to build discipline. If you are not a disciplined person and you want to build discipline, I think it's absolutely important that you have a structure.
Yeah.
But I think once you have a structure, you don't want to get burnt out by that, so you want to kind of find the balance between, yes, structure, but also, what works for you. So I'm kind of in the middle of figuring that out.
No, it's a healthy place. And I think you mentioned burnout. I think if you're overly obsessive about the things that don't really fire you up and that are draining to you, that's a great way to not stick with it for the long term.
Yep.
Which I think is a good goal, is the ability to, okay, maybe I don't get the time now, but maybe I get it next year or the year after or the year after. It's having that like longevity as opposed to being really tight about outcomes.
Yep.
So I wanted to go back to a point that you mentioned about when you're explaining or when you're trying to convince somebody to maybe do something for the first time, right? So the name of this podcast is the Hero's Journey Podcast, meaning that like you start as a boy and you get all these different mentorship and things that come into your life that then mold you into the person, that you are today. What would you tell your former self or somebody else that maybe you meet at the Himalayan tribe events that say, hey, Sabin, I really want to run my first 5K or, they're not impressed by the Ironman because you tell them Ironman and they're like, oh, I would never do that. I'm so scared. Like that's way too far over here. I'm right here.
Yep.
So what would you tell that person, and like how would you kind of make it easy to digest for them?
Yeah, I would basically say like just go for it. Like go for whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Don't think about failure. Don't think about failing. Like if you fail, you fail. Like you're gonna learn something out of it. So don't do like this analysis paralysis, but just take action, like go just if you want to do a 5K, just sign up for a 5K, do it. You might do it in 35 minutes, you might do it in 25 minutes, but you will learn something from that experience. And if you like it, sure, you will choose to do a 10K maybe, but I always kind of tell my friends that I meet right now is, don't say you can't do something unless you try it, because you don't know. Like, if you don't try it, you're not going to know. And then the other thing is, don't say this is not for me after doing it once. You have to like spend some time doing something, maybe 30 days, 60 days, and give yourself that time to understand whatever you're trying to do, whether it's running or painting or, it can be anything,
Right.
It doesn't have to be super hard physical exercise, but give yourself time to really understand whatever you are getting into. And if you don't like it after 60 days, sure, you can drop it and do something else. But those are kind of like, have been my kind of suggestions for people is, don't think too much, go for it. If you feel like, you have this drive to want to do something, do it. And then, do it for like a couple months, 3 months, and see, if you like it. If
Right.
you don't, then that's totally okay.
Yeah. Because the first main part, the first part of those 3 months is going to be awful. It's going to be painful, and it's going to be, you're out of shape.
Yep.
And of course the runs are going to suck.
Yep.
Or I don't know how to paint. Of course the paintings are going to stink.
Yep.
So, so it's just, it definitely compounds over time.
Yep.
And then once you build that fitness or the ability to learn a new skill,
Yep.
you have that. And that's like David Goggins talks about the cookie jar,
Yep.
where like you do this thing and suddenly you have this reservoir of
Yep.
things that you can pull from. And you can, anytime things get difficult, you're like, oh, I remember when it was really hard here.
Yep.
Or I remember the first half marathon that I ran that I didn't think I was going to finish.
Yeah.
There's always like a reservoir of things that you can begin to pull from as time progresses.
Yeah. And what I've seen some people get into is like this, what shoe I need to buy, or do I need a carbon shoe, or do I need this bike, or like, when you're starting out, like that's my advice is like, don't focus on a lot of things like that, you just need you just get whatever shoe and just start running. Don't lose the fact that it's the fitness and health that you are trying to upgrade, and not your shoe, right? Like, upgrade your physiology first.
Totally.
Upgrade your quads first before upgrading your bike.
You're focusing on the wrong.
You're focusing on the wrong stuff.
Yeah. There's people that like talk about like seed oils, right? They're like, you don't need to be worrying about seed oils. You can't even run a mile. Or like, it's just funny. We lose track of like the actual important things. Right.
Yep.
Well, cool. I mean, this has been a brief but awesome conversation. I typically finish the podcast with a question that I like asking everybody. I think there's no right answer. It just reveals a lot about you and how you approach life. And so if you want to add anything else before we close out, you're more than welcome to. But if not, I can just ask.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you think that you were born, or do you think that you were made?
I think I am born. Like I said, like I go back to my childhood and how I am, and I still feel like I'm the same person.
Yeah.
I've kind of maybe lost my way a little bit here and there. But I always, when I was a kid, I always was the kid that wanted to jump in and do something.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like, and I have this feeling or this personality that I have, that I'm born with.
Yeah.
So I think I definitely, I'm born to take actions, and I'm very actionable. I'm very proactive. Been that way since my schooling days and childhood. But like I said, kind of lost track a little bit here and there, but yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Sabin, thanks for the time. Thanks for the conversation. We'll have to do it again at some point, part 2.
Sounds good.
But yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
Yep.